Welcome councillors, officers, members of the press and public gallery. Please be upstanding. We, the councillors of Hobsons Bay, recognise that we are privileged to serve a community enriched by diversity. We respect and value our community's backgrounds, customs and beliefs, and declare that we will always act impartially to the best of our skill and judgment. Through our deliberations and our conduct, we will uphold the council values to deliver outcomes that enhance the city of Hobsons Bay. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional lands of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We recognise the First Peoples' relationship to this land and offer our respects to the elders, past and present. Please be seated. The meeting is being live streamed on the council website to enhance public access to deliberations of council, and the meeting is also being recorded as a podcast and will be made available on the council website. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Jeff Mitchellmore, former Citizen of the Year, and also welcome all members of the public gallery. Councillors, are there any apologies for this evening?
Yes, I'd like to declare an apology for Councillor Hemphill, and I'll refer to this in matters of urgent business at the end of the meeting.
Would you like to move that as an apology, or just foreshadowing that you'll move something in the...
I'll foreshadow that I'll move that as a matter of urgent business.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any disclosures of interest to declare? I've got one related to 8.4.7, Leo Hoffman Reserve Playground Upgrade. A family member has a property in that vicinity, and so I'll leave the chamber and the Deputy Mayor will step in for that item. Next item is the confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of July have been circulated, and I am seeking a mover.
So moved.
And a seconder? All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Oh, sorry, Councillor Callender. I'll do that again. Apologies. I thought I saw your hand. All those in favour? All those against? And abstentions? Motion is carried. Thank you. Just give me one moment, councillors. Councillors, are there any questions? I'll start with you, Councillor Marsden. Councillor Sutherland, go.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. The first question is in relation to Bronte Court and the future of social housing there. I understand, and some residents have brought to my attention, that that building's being retired by Homes Victoria, and they're worried about their future and where they're going to be living. And I wonder if the officers can give any advice on that.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Sutherland. Through you, Mayor. We're still seeking to find out a bit further information, but I will be raising it with the CEO of Homes Victoria in an upcoming meeting, so I can report back following that discussion.
My next question is in relation to the heritage status of the rail yards in Champion Road, And I believe there's been some correspondence regarding their status, and I wonder if I can get an indication of what is being proposed and how we're responding.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Great question. You may know that the Newport Railway Yards were the subject of a submission by this council to ask for further heritage protections. So what's happened recently is that the Executive Director of Heritage Victoria has put out for consultation for 60 days proposal to include more items and more heritage items at Newport Railway Yards in the register. So it hasn't gone as far to address every single thing that council asked, but it is a long way. At the next council meeting, we'll be putting forward to explain sort of where we sort of think this is going and put that forward. All members of the community are allowed to put in their own submissions, but it's a recommendation from the Executive Director, not a decision at this stage, but then they will make a decision after or on the 6th of September. So it may take a few months, but it's a good outcome and encourage everyone to look on the Heritage Victoria website.
Thank you. And there was considerable media recently about a Legionella outbreak which had potentially started in Laverton North. And could I ask whether there's been any further information about this outbreak and whether the council is planning to make any comment on that to the community?
Thank you, Councillor. Indeed, I think in The Age last week and a number of sources it was reported that the outbreak was thought to have started in Laverton North in a cooling tower. And our condolences to everyone who was unwell and unfortunately, kind of contracted the disease. It's not nice. In the last week, council hasn't received any orders or notices to do anything different than any other council. So there's nothing for us to do differently to anyone else at the moment other than to encourage community members to be aware. There's information on the Department of Health website, but there isn't anything that anyone different in Laverton or anyone else in Hobsons Bay needs to do. Just be mindful of the signs and the symptoms. But our understanding is that whilst people are being treated, that particular cooling tower has now been shut down, cleaned, and that other manufacturers and operators who are using cooling towers have also been informed and are required to clean their systems, etc. So I don't think there's anything else for us to do at the moment.
A last question, if I may. The council put out some documentation to the community showing its lack of support for the closure of Champion Road at the level crossing, and I wondered if we'd had any further feedback from the state government in relation to our public statement that we don't want the road closed.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. To date, I don't think we've had any response in terms of the actual newsletter, but I can inform that in recent times we've had notification from the Minister of Planning, which has designated the project area for the site, and that that'll come into effect once published in the Government Gazette.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I forgot how to put the microphone on. Very different to our previous system. That's so embarrassing. Okay. I wasn't going to ask any questions because council officers are always very diligent in responding to them, but there is one question I'll ask that council officers are aware of, and I thought I'll just ask it at this point rather than later on in the agenda for the benefit of the minutes, and that's in relation to Racecourse Road, Altona. Because as we'll discuss later on in the agenda, we're doing an upgrade of the Ford at Racecourse Road and upgrading it from a Ford to a culvert. But I'm just hoping that perhaps Mr. Irving, if you could enlighten us with explaining the differences between a Ford and a culvert and what it is that we're proposing there, because I suspect the community's expectation is that we'll have a bridge there that will mitigate against flood events, and that is not the case, but happy to hear from you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So if we look at the environment down there at Racecourse Road, officers did a significant modelling to understand what would be an appropriate measure for improvement to overcome some of the flooding constraints that we have down there. So what is proposed that's coming up in the contract later for consideration is a 1 in 2 structure, so it's a culvert structure. At the moment, the structure that is in that location is a ford, so in a sense it's a 1 in 1, so 100% probability that it will flood each year. Moving to a 1 in 2 structure moves to a 50% probability that it could flood each year. Now this is based on modelling, so it's not a perfect science of how this operates. If we were to go to any structure that was of greater flood mitigation, the costs would be significantly more substantial, and that also some of the potential structures are not viable due to the type of environmental conditions that exist down in that location at Racecourse Road at the outfall there.
Thank you, Mr Irving. Yeah, I really appreciate that explanation. Thank you. No more questions from me.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. Just want to ask, I don't know who the right person is, but to ask through you, Mr Mayor, the Career Expo Hobson Bay under the Mayor's program, which is, to my eyes, that I attended, it looked like a great, well-attended program. Do we have an update on how many people attended and any feedback on that, how it went?
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. It's a really good question. At the next meeting, there'll be a report on all the items in the Mayor's programme, and there'll be some stats in there. But so far, we know over 8,500 people were there. I think all up. So that was included. Sorry, 850. Not 1,000. I've got a 0 on the end. But that overall, we've got like a lot of commentary, and obviously some of our youth and teenagers provided us with really, really good commentary. So we'll put that forward. But everyone was really positive who replied, that everyone had a really fun day, and also we know a lot of people took away experiences, and a few people we understand may have got work out of the event, which is fantastic. And I think there's a really good comment to say it was like rad, so people are using really cool words about it, much cooler than me. So yeah, it was very well intended and well received, so good job.
Excellent news. And that's very exciting. Through the Mayor's program and the Mayor, I guess, are we thinking about the future of this successful Mayor program?
Councillor, well, that event in particular was a one-off that we did, obviously, with the federal government, and everything like this is subject to future funding. So this isn't a regular program that we fund in the normal budget. It was a one-off for this year, but I think it was so successful, we want to think about how we achieve similar effects in the future. That might be once every couple of years, or working with other councils, for example. I'm sure there's other ways we can work together to make something work in the future. But all of these events are sort of on a case-by-case basis, but it did work really well. We're really pleased.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mr Mayor. It's very well done.
Thanks, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Calendar.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First question through you. Can you please provide an update on the work currently taking place on the Altona foreshore?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So the works that are currently occurring are stage 1 of the Esplanade improvement there. So that includes significant pedestrian works, upgrade to the foreshore elements, a number of elements such as drinking fountains, tables, chairs, viewing shelters. So that work has commenced in July, and that'll continue through till November. At that point, weather pending, and then it'll planned that stage 2, subject to working through the full road closure, which is subject to community consultation at this point in time, will commence following the summer peak period next calendar year.
Thank you. So just to confirm, the works will end prior to the summer peak season?
Correct. So the plan is to have those works conclude in November, weather pending, but everything is on track at this point in time.
Thanks, Mr Irving, for your response. Second question through you, Mr Mayor. A club at the Altona Youth Hall recently reached out expressing some maintenance concerns. Can you provide an update on what's being done to address their concerns?
Thank you for the question, councillor. So officers recently met with club members of the Altona Youth Hall in response to some maintenance concerns that they raised. In particular, they were around heating and cooling, some painting works and some floor polishing. So officers have had constructive discussions with those members, and we'll be looking to resolve those over the coming financial year through a range of our different maintenance and renewal programs.
That's great news. Thanks, Mr Mayor. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Calendar. Just one question from me, I think, to you, Ms Lunn. I'm just seeking an update on the progress as it relates to the message tree, and specifically the thinking around the position of the tree, where council staff are at in terms of deliberations on that front.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. People that have been in Nelson Place recently will have seen that the artwork and the message tree contemplative signages have already started to be installed. The benches are there now, so the project's largely underway. There's some really beautiful bluestone and other footpath works on that corner of Nelson Place where it's being installed. So there's the existing spot for the tree for the new she oak, which is the species for the message tree. That's going to be installed on that corner next to the benches and the interpretive signage and the storytelling on that corner in the next week or two. And that location was chosen because it's adjacent to where the rest of the storytelling and the bench is. So that whole corner area around the message tree opposite the yacht is where everything's going to be located. And I think there was some information just earlier in the year in the CEO Ops report on that, and we'll just provide more information as things are finished over the next month or so.
Thank you, Ms Lunn. Councillors, bear with me. There were two sets of minutes circulated, and because there were two, it's thrown me. I've just focused on the 9th of July, and so I just want to return to the confirmation of minutes. We've also got circulated in the agenda the 11th of June, and then I'll go to public question time. And so the minutes of 11th of June have been circulated. We've confirmed the minutes of 9th of July, and so I'm looking for a mover for the minutes of the 11th of June.
So moved.
My bad. I assume that they were being moved together based on the one line item that's in the agenda.
I thought that was the case, but I've said the 9th of July.
Okay, so in that case, I'm actually happy to support the 9th of July, but not the 11th of June.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'll just
So
leave
for
that
clarity,
for your consideration.
For
Thank
clarity, I'll do both, so that we can rectify any misunderstanding. And so the minutes of the 9th of July have been circulated, and so we'll consider those first.
Sorry, to be clear, Mayor, is this the one we've moved?
Yeah, so just for clarity, so that given that there was a misunderstanding that we were moving both together.
Happy to move the first, as before.
And seconded by Councillor Briffa as before, and so I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Yeah. The motion is carried unanimously. And then the second one, the 11th of June, seeking a mover.
Happy.
So
Moved by Councillor Marston. Seeking a seconder. June. Yeah, so Councillor Briffa can't move. Seconded by Councillor Grimmer. I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Yeah, and division? So put the motion to the vote again. Councillor Marston, Councillor Tyler, Councillor Grimmer? And all those against? Councillor Sutton-Legault, Councillor Calendar, and abstentions? Councillor Briffa. Let me just seek advice. And so the motion is carried using my casting vote as mayor. Thank you, councillors. Okay, public question time. The public question time segment provides an opportunity for the public to ask questions related to items on the agenda of the council meeting or any other matter within council's responsibility. Questions must be put in writing and received by 12 p.m. the day prior to the council meeting. Questions received after this time will be responded to in writing by the appropriate council officer. In accordance with subsection 13.1 of the Hobsons Bay Governance Rules, 20 minutes has been allocated for public question time, with individual responses not exceeding 2 minutes each. In accordance with Rule 13.1.14, a maximum of 3 public questions may be submitted per meeting by a member of the public. And in accordance with Rule 13.1.11 of the Hobsons Bay Governance Rules, the person who submitted the question must be present in the public gallery during public question time for their question to be read out. As it relates to tonight's questions, there are some public questions submitted that are in conflict with Governance Rules section 13.1.16, which unfortunately can't be read out, and some submitters have exceeded the 3-question limit, and therefore some of their questions cannot be read out. There are also some Technopark related questions that, following on from council's letters to people living at Technopark and other state government agencies, that can't be answered because they may prejudice future decisions or planning, building permit or certificate applications. The first questions have been submitted by Yamama Al-Shabaji. Hi, Yamama. Yamama's first question is, does the Mayor and councillors believe that local government has a responsibility to advocate for and utilise council's power to address human rights abuses? And the council officer's response reads, the Local Government Act 2020 requires that the role of a council is to provide good governance in its municipal district for the benefit and well-being of the municipal community. Council always seeks to advocate and understand its responsibilities under the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities 2006. I'm reading the aspect of I'm doing my best to read what I can. Yeah, it's not a back and forth. I'm reading the question that we're able to read. That's the question that has been, well, that's the question I've received. So it's not a back and forth. The second question is, should Hobsons Bay refrain from investing ratepayers' money in industries that contribute to human suffering and human rights violations, such as weapons manufacturing, surveillance technology, gambling or tobacco? And the council officer's response reads, council has an investment policy in accordance with section 103 of the Local Government Act 2020. Council's investments comply with the policy and are held with major financial institutions within Australia. The portfolio is diversified with no more than 30% held with any financial institution. This policy will be reviewed at the commencement of the new council term following the local government elections later this year. Your views have been noted and will be considered in more detail at the time of this review. And Yamama's third question reads, Maribyrnong Council recently took a significant step by interrogating 2,506 creditors to explore options for cancelling contracts with companies that support or profit from war crimes. Do you agree that local government and councillors have a duty to use their authority to address human rights abuses, including divesting from companies involved or who are somehow complicit in war crimes? And the council officer's response reads, Council is happy to make inquiries regarding the actions taken by Maribyrnong Council, as described in the question, to assist Hobsons Bay City Council in its deliberations. The next questions have been submitted by Rowena Joski. Hi, Rowena. Rowena has 3 questions. The first reads, Council recently ran online consultation on concept designs for the link. The project was described as designing a walking and cycling connection between Brooklyn to Altona Gate Shopping Centre. The designs indicate that Council is unaware of several walking and bike paths that have been recently constructed, but that are not yet on Google Maps. This includes the shared bike path along the west side of Millers Road under the freeway, the narrow path along the south side of the freeway between Irwin Avenue and Chambers Road in Altona North, and the connecting path from Richards Court in Brooklyn. Did the project to develop the concept plans for the link include site visits to Altona North and Brooklyn to survey the current conditions? And the council officer's response reads, the draft concept designs for the link project in Brooklyn and Altona North were developed in line with the Better Places Guide for the area. These designs aim to create a comfortable walking and cycling connection to Altona Gate Shopping Centre, avoiding Millers Road, which the Better Places Guide identified as uncomfortable for pedestrians and cyclists. Officers conducted several site visits when preparing the concept plans and are aware of the infrastructure delivered by the Westgate Tunnel project. The second question reads, the engagement snapshot for the link shows 36% of respondents said they were generally unsupportive. How will the next stage of the project respond to this high level of dissatisfaction? And the council officer's response reads, the feedback that has been received will be considered as the design work is further developed. This work will continue over the coming financial year and be subject to further consultation. Ms Joski's third question reads, students at Bayside have indicated that they were not aware of the council's proposal for the zone, which is a new park in Altona North for teenagers that consultation is currently being done on. Noting the importance of consulting with young people who would use this park, can the council please run some lunchtime pop-ups or something similar at the Paisley and Altona North campuses of Bayside? And the council officer's response reads, as part of the engagement plan for the zone, council officers approach local schools to seek the preferred ways to engage with students at their school. Each of the schools provided preferred avenues for engagement to be carried out. The schools in the main sought for the promotion of existing engagement activities through their existing communication channels. Officers have also worked with local youth focus groups to gather insights on what they would like to see at the zone. These groups included young people from local schools. Officers will reach out again to local schools to identify if any other opportunities may exist to engage with students. The next question comes from Jeff Mitchmore. Hi, Jeff. Jeff's question reads, is council applying for a grant through the federal government Thriving Suburbs program, which closes on the 26th of August, to fund stages 4 and 5 of the Corroit Creek Shared Trail? And the council officer's response reads, the guidelines of this funding program allow up to 2 applications per organisation. Taking into consideration the funding guidelines, council's advocacy strategy, priority project plan, long-term financial plan and 24-25 budget document, priority projects such as the Western Aquatic and Early Years Centre, Hobsons Bay Wetland Centre and the Corroit Creek Shared Trail stages 4 and 5 projects are being considered for applications to this program. Liaison with the funding body is ongoing to ensure any applications put forward best align with the funding guidelines. Applications for this funding program will be made by the 26th of August deadline. The next question comes from John Link. We'll send John a response. And that concludes council question time. Councillors, the next item is petitions and joint letters. Do we have any petitions or joint letters to be tabled?
Yes, I'd like to table.
You want to move that, Councillor
Sure.
Marsden?
So I have a motion that council receives and notes the petition titled Petition to Install Traffic Management Treatments to Osborne Street at Fair and Reserve, and two, subject to a review of the petition in accordance with the Hobsons Bay Governance Rules, receives a further report on this matter at a future council meeting.
And what's on screen, does that align with what you want? Yep. I'll seek a seconder for that motion. Councillor Sutton, go. Councillor Marsden, I'll pass to you as the mover.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a handwritten petition which was handed to council officers today, contains 56 signatures and has text at the top of every page which says, "We, the undersigned, petition Hobsons Bay City Council to install traffic management treatments to Osborne Street, Fair and Reserve." The lead petitioner is Adam Plunkett, who has corresponded with council over the past couple of years about a perceived risk to safety of children in particular who are playing football on Fair and Reserve on the weekends. The petition is accompanied by a drawing, which is a suggested level crossing wombat-style treatment at the end of Garden Street, connecting through and across Osborne Street to assist children who are attempting to cross the road after the footy match. It's a very fast street, as you know. Osborne Street's a very long, fast, wide street. It is often difficult to cross at the best of times, particularly for children who don't move quickly or who are unused to fast-moving vehicles. So there's, at that end of Osborne Street, near the Botanic Gardens and the Fair and Reserve, there's a risk which the petitioner contends could be mitigated by a wombat crossing, and I won't try and interpret or otherwise comment further on the petition, except to say that I look forward to reading the report when it comes back from the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marsden. Councillor...
Sorry, and I'd like to thank Adam Plunkett for making the effort to not only draw a proposed treatment, but also for collecting the signatures and being aware of community safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marsden. Councillor Sutton, go.
Thank you to the community for putting this forward. It's always good to hear that there are things that perhaps we haven't seen and that they can bring that to our attention. And I also look forward to receiving the report from the officers. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Marsden, I'll go back to you as the mover. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Councillors, the next item is 7.2.1, response to petition Stop Hiking Our Rates. Seeking a mover. Moved by Councillor Marsden. Second by Councillor Sutton, go. Councillor Marsden.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation and my motion is now that Council, 1, notes that the annual budget 2024-25 included a rate increase of 2.75% in accordance with the Victorian Government rate cap legislation, and secondly, writes to the lead petitioner advising of the outcome. And that's really the response in a nutshell, because the council voted to increase rates on average by 2.75% across all categories. And this petition, which was submitted some months previously, asks council not to do such a thing, in which case this is the response to that petition. And I can't obviously speak for the councillors that voted to increase rates by 2.75% on average, but I guess talk to my own motivation for doing so, and that is that the implication of not increasing rates would be an ongoing hit to the council budget, which would top out at some $35 million after 10 years. So it would severely affect our long-term capacity to maintain our assets and to meet community expectations. The rate cap that council voted for was less than inflation, and certainly the residential rate rise was about half of that. So that rate rise that was voted by the council in June is effectively a response to this petition. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Councillor Sutton Legault is the seconder.
Thank you. Again, always good to hear from the community about things that they care about. I think, unfortunately, this sort of was around the same time that we were approving the budget, so it was a little difficult in terms of timing. But the lead petitioner will receive an update on the outcome of their petition, which contained 143 signatures. And yeah, it's good that we've been able to come back and give a good explanation, perhaps not the one they want, but a good explanation of why we took the decision that we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton Legault. Are there any speakers against the motion?
Can I ask a question, Mr Mayor? No, it's too late.
Are there any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The petition was actually received in May, so I think it's poor that a response wasn't provided in advance of the budget being finalised, especially given how brief the response actually is. What's interesting also is that the response that is being provided talks to a 0% increase when the petition itself didn't actually make that request. The petition clearly stipulates an ask for the increased rate revenue against the prior year forecast to be reduced only. So $35 million over 10 years is highly falsified information. I think that the response should be directly related to the ask, and it should have been made in a timely manner. I'll leave it at that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender.
Yep.
Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Recognising Councillor Callender is correct. It was the petition was handed to us in May. I did ask and I did seek advice to what's going on at briefings and other communications. It was informed that it's already gone out to public consultation for people to receive their ideology and what they want. So it was already going out to public consultation. So I'm assuming if it's already gone out to public consultation on this issue, I guess all petitions would be, it's already addressed his issue with the consultation, I suppose. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Briffa.
Thank you. Just speaking for myself, when I considered the budget, I certainly considered this petition, and I mentioned that at the time as well. So I believe the petition was considered by councillors at a, at the time of the consideration of the budget. Although it's unfortunate this response hasn't been sooner.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Councillor Marston, I'll come back to you as the mover.
Yeah, it's problematic, I think, to assert that it was falsified. I think that's a really strong language, which is, I won't ask the council to withdraw, but I think it's important to note that, and it's covered on page 7, where it reads, Council received the Stage 3 revaluations in early March 2024. Further budget briefings considered the initial Stage 3 property revaluations at 1st January 24 and the impact on average rates for each of the rating categories and residential suburbs. Various rate models were considered before the preferred rating model was included in the proposed budget 2024-25. This was based on a rate increase of 2.75%. So in fact, the petitioner directly refers to an amount that is calculated on that basis. So it's a factual assertion, even though I accept that there's no mention of the rate in here, only a misunderstanding as to how the supplementary rates changed the valuation over time and how that money could be otherwise spent. I thank the petitioner for the petition and endorse the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marston, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Abstentions. I've had a division called, and so I'll put the motion to the vote again. All those in favour? Councillor Marston, Councillor Sutton-Legault, Councillor Tyler, Councillor Briffa and Councillor Grimmer. All those against? And abstentions? Councillor Calendar. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the next item is 8.1.1, Chief Executive Officer's report on operations. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Seeking a mover. Moved by Councillor, a question or? Moved by Councillor Grimmer. And seconded by Councillor Sutton-Legault. Thank you. Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council does continue to be the committed serving for our great community. These needs including innovation and consistency being monitored and reviewed and discussed. This ensures the best fit for purpose for our best community and the outcomes. So the statistics do reveal of a measure of how successful council efforts are. These include our STEAM library that we had in Altona Meadows Wildlife Encounters with 1,100 public attending that day. Seabrook Community Centre had 138 bookings in July, and I'm pleased to note that Newport Community Hub had 120 bookings to hire rooms. We continue to support immunisation, youth programs and activities. And we also, I'm proud to announce that we've had 67,026 visitors in our Hobson Bay Library, which is such a great achievement. I'll speak more to the CEO report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Thank you. As always, there's so much going on in this municipality, and it's listed in the CEO's report. One thing that really stood out for me was the amount of revegetation work that's going on around the municipality, including in the Sandy Spit at Laverton Creek, the Coal Grant area in Truganina Park, and there's also the conservation team has conducted their regular survey of the Spiny Riceflower area, which is regenerating after an ecological burn. So there's some really wonderful work going on by those conservation teams. I was very happy to see that we're conducting a footpath and roads condition audit of the 771 kilometres of footpaths and 62 bridges throughout the municipality. We do that every 5 years or so, and I'm sure lots will come out of that. We get lots of feedback on our roads and footpaths. So, and I think it will be really interesting to see what the results of that review are. With the Mayor and Councillor Grimmer, I attended the groundbreaking event at the soon-to-be constructed Wetlands Centre, the Hobsons Bay Wetlands Centre, and it's really wonderful to see a community project that really came straight from the community, again, like so many others, but this one is coming into fruition, and that was, I stood on that, the ground there. It's a real greenfield site, nothing there before, and wonderful views out to the whole district, and I think it's going to be a fantastic contribution, not just to Hobsons Bay, but to the whole of the West. So I'm really proud of everything that we've done to make that happen. I look forward to seeing that come to life. We also had the scoping has begun for the master plan for Riverside Park in Spotswood, which is scheduled for completion in 24-25. So many other things. A contractor has been appointed for the restoration of the cottage, adjoining the Williamstown Mechanics Institute, and a working group has been set up for that. So I really hope that we get strong expressions of interest to help plan the future of that historic site. It's sat a little unloved for so many years, so it would be great to see that come back to life as well. I wanted to draw attention to within the CEO report, refer to the Council's hardship policy for any persons who need financial assistance. They can apply online for an interest-free repayment plan or be assessed for a waiver of rates. So if anyone does need any help, to reach out to councillors or officers to get assistance. We've received expressions of interest for the Women's Advisory Committee, and that's part of my commitment as one of the Women's Charter Champions and supporting equity for women in Hobsons Bay. So we've had several applications for that committee, and I'm really delighted that will happen within this term. And finally, as another wonderful event, the Junior Council was held here in Chamber, and I represented the council on behalf of the Mayor, and I think all of the schools in Hobsons Bay were represented. It was a really wonderful opportunity to hear directly from young people with the most fantastic public speaking skills. I wish I had those skills at that age. And they gave some really interesting insights into the needs of the community from their perspective. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few potential future councillors or mayors in that group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Are there any other speakers to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to draw your attention to page 10, where there's a really interesting summary, as there always is, of early years and family services. And you'll be pleased to know, being a young father, that in July there were a total of 92 infants born to Hobsons Bay families. The highest number were in Newport and Williamstown. The Universal Maternal Child Health Service completed 971 consultations and appointments. The Enhanced Maternal Child Health, or MCH service, received 18 new referrals and provided 77 ongoing consultations for vulnerable families. 13 families received support packages from either St Kilda Mums or the Victorian Government Nursery Equipment Program for vulnerable families. And on the same page, there's a summary of other services, such as a preschool field officer who received 11 referrals in addition to providing 27 consultations to educators in July, and that's about skilling up kindergarten delivery. "16 small talk groups, 8 supported playgroups and 4 one-to-one sessions were provided to vulnerable families." So it's good to know that people are still having kids, and that they're also receiving support from council, particularly when they're under vulnerable circumstances.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Any other speakers? Motion? Councillor Grimmer, I'll come back to you as the mover.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also pleased to announce that we've had over 2,200 meals that are provided for elderly residents who are eligible, and that included residents with all culture and allergy needs, so it's good, and they also got in social needs as well for transport, which is a great thing. And also we had parenting programs that included 23 first-timing parents, group programs, 6 sleep support programs, 17 feeding sessions, which I can definitely relate to, having 2 kids of my own, 3 circle security, and I think that's such a great achievement. And we've also had, I spoke about Meals on Wheels, and I have to speak about the Career Expo. I'm really proud that it's in the your mayoralty program, Mr. Mayor, for the Career Expo. We heard tonight, it was such a success with all ages and abilities, so it's fantastic. And it was a great day and I attended, so well done. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously, and agree, Councillor Sutton-Legault, the Junior Council is a real highlight. I've really enjoyed joining them. Councillors, next item is 8.2.1, annual adjustment to mayoral, deputy mayoral and councillor allowances 2024. Are there any questions in relation to this item? I'm seeking a mover. Moved by Councillor Marston. Seconded by Councillor Sutton-Legault. Councillor Marston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a periodic review of councillor allowances. It's a very detailed and extensive document, so I won't spend much time on it. Suffice it to say that the motion makes it clear, and it's seen on screen, the figures that have been put forward, which is a 3.5% increase in annual base allowances inclusive of superannuation, which is a recent change from 1st July 2024 to 17 December 2024. And the figures are there: mayoral allowance 109,114, deputy mayoral allowance 54,558, council allowance 34,028. And then notes that the future 3.5% increases inclusive of GST be applied to mayoral and deputy mayoral allowances on the day following, the 18th of December 2024 and 18th December 2025. So it's a slight increase, chasing CPI but not quite, and is periodically updated to reflect economic circumstances and to attract people to put their hand up for council. People who serve on council often forego paid work to do that. It's a really good opportunity though, if young parents in particular are on maternity or family leave, paternity leave, to be able to do the role. So I think it's really compatible with raising young children, but at the same time, being able to pay your mortgage or to step out of full-time work in the case of the mayor, if required. So this is a very, very long report that outlines the reasons that the Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal made the decision they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Councillor Sutton will go as the seconder.
Thank you. Yes, it is a very long report, and but this talks to, as my colleague said, the allowances payable to mayors, deputy mayors and councillors. It's good that this is made public. Everyone can see that we do it for love. And but it is good to be recompensed for the work that we do and that all councillors may do in the future. And I think it's clear what's happening, and as I say, it's very good that we keep this transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Councillor Marston, I'll go back to you as the mover.
Yeah, there's nothing really to add.
Yeah, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. The next item is 8.2.2, contract 2024.21, electricity retail supply. Are there any questions? I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Sutton will go, and seconded by Councillor Marston. Councillor Sutton will go.
I need to get all my cameras and my laptops all lined up. So this the purpose of this paper is to delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to award and execute a contract for electricity retail supply. The delegated authority is required as the contract value is expected to be over the CEO's financial delegation of $1 million, and the time to accept and sign an electricity retailer agreement is within approximately 48 hours from the offer being received. So there isn't time for this to come back to a future council meeting, be approved, and then be the decision to be made. So the recommendation is that the council delegates authority to the CEO to award and execute the contract after conducting a tender process. The contract is for electricity retail supply to all council buildings where council is responsible for paying the retail bill. And so specific authorisation from council is required to the CEO to award and execute the supply contract. So council will conduct a request for tender process, so that has not been done yet, compliant with the council's procurement policy, and leading edge energy brokers will be engaged to assist in the process. So I'm happy to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton will go, and Councillor Marston as the seconder.
Yes, this is a necessary motion in order to pre-authorise the CEO to award that amount as it is over the financial delegation of $1 million. And I don't really have anything further to add except that it's a necessary and timely motion which I support.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? I'll do that. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Councillors, the next item is 8.3.1, Plan for Victoria Submission Addendum, Victorian State Government Housing Targets. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Thank you. This is a really important paper, and I'm glad that we're responding to this submission. I know there's still quite a lot that we need to understand, but could, through you, Mr. Mayor, could we get some indication of how this request may impact Hobsons Bay in terms of how it might change the strategies that we already have in place for housing?
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor. As outlined in our submission, essentially what we're saying is that the current housing strategy for our municipality is estimated to deliver 15,000 to 16,000 additional homes from 2019 until 2036. So that's what we're planned to do. If you look at a map, where all the housing is located. So obviously in Hobsons Bay, we've got a lot of heritage areas. We've got a load of natural beauty areas in Ramsar and protected areas, and we've got a lot of commercial land for jobs and tourism and other factors. So what we're saying is, at the moment, we know that the state government has undertaken some initial modelling to work out where it thinks, across the whole of Victoria, extra homes could go that I think most people accept now that we need to make things more affordable and to keep the homes for future generations. What we're saying is that we don't have that model yet. We don't know where the extra homes from 2036 to 2050 will go in our city. And we're saying that we want to work with the state to do that work, to work out if we can accommodate those extra houses without limiting some of the things that are great about Hobsons Bay, like our heritage areas, but also acknowledging we've probably got some opportunities too that we could leverage, but we need to work together with the state government on what this looks like. So our ask is to say, right now we don't know where it would go. We haven't done that work, and there's a pretty significant multi-year piece of work to do to now forecast much longer than we've ever had to forecast before and work out what that means for our place now and in the future, but do it together with the state government and our neighbouring councils and the other M9 councils to make sure that we're not just looking at our bit, but how do people get to work, how do people get to school, where's the right place for people to live next to services, etc.
Any other questions, councillors? I just had one to follow up, and it's more related to the process. Ms. Lunnon, the sequencing, we obviously considered an item related to our submission to Plan for Victoria, the last meeting. Just the reason for the sequencing for this to come to this current meeting.
Mr. Mayor, that's a good question. So we were terribly efficient with our Plan for Victoria response to make it in good time, and councillors considered our submission to the whole of the Plan for Victoria, which includes all uses and all sort of considerations, jobs, houses, etc. And then we sent that off on, I think it was the 14th of June, and then on Sunday, the 16th of June, I believe it was, the state government DTP then released the housing targets. So the housing targets were not released when you previously considered what we wanted to submit. So we thought that this was a relevant thing to come back, particularly since around 31,000 in houses total have got to be there. We thought it was relevant to come back and say, this is a pretty big change. We reckon we can work on it, but these figures were released well after the original paper, so that hence the sequencing. But these two matters of housing and the whole plan will now be joined together and put forward as part of probably the next iteration of the draft much later this year.
Thank you. Councillors seeking a mover. Councillor Sutton-Legault, and seconded by Councillor Marston. Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Thank you. This is a very challenging subject because we are limited by some of the beauty and all the things that you said, Rachel, about how Hobsons Bay is structured. But it's important that we respond to the Victorian Government's draft plan for consultation into housing targets for Hobsons Bay. It may be that it will increase the density of the buildings that need to be built. And when you see the number of businesses that are going out of business, and many of them are construction companies and building companies, I think it's going to be a very interesting few years. So this recommendation is to endorse that the Director of Sustainable Communities provide written feedback to this state consultation, and notes that on its current housing strategy, there's not enough land planned to deliver the state housing target for Hobsons Bay. That's a really important thing for us to say. We don't want our land eaten up by lots of housing estates, even though we know that we need to provide housing for those who need it most. And so that we need to note that the current and future strategic planning work is required with state government to agree suitable housing targets for Hobsons Bay in light of both the needs of the future community and the constraints of our environment.
Thank you, Councillor Legault. Councillor Marston is the seconder.
Yeah, so I support the state government's desire to increase density in the middle ring suburbs to prevent further sprawl. You know, it's incredibly expensive for Victorians to continue to fund infrastructure across that massive area. And the more we can go up in areas where it's appropriate to do so, then the less money we have to spend on transport, schools, services, all the things that are lacking in the greenfield sites that are gobbling up the farmland on the edge of town. Melbourne's a very attractive place to live because we've got so much greenfield potential. Unfortunately, we're squandering it effectively by just putting in cheap housing at the edge and then playing catch up with amenity and services. So this is a way for the state government to encourage densification where it will work, but of course we now have to do the mathematics and try and understand exactly where these dwellings will go. So this is really hard work and something that the team has over the years done proactively, not only in the submission a few years ago or the report that we did on the housing situation in Hobsons Bay, but also the submission, the excellent submission that we passed on the 11th of June to the state government as part of the Plan Victoria consultation. And this 6-page document is effectively an update to respond to the housing targets, which we'll put out via the Age article. Obviously, there's a bit of discussion to come. They'll have to look at the responses from all of the councils, particularly in the metropolitan area, where there's going to be a greater need for densification than has previously been planned for. We've done very careful planning as best we can to understand where new dwellings can go. We've operated largely on the assumption, I think, that our brownfield sites and those existing industrial areas will remain industrial to encourage not only economic growth but also the ability for people to work locally. So, you know, which will reduce the strain on our infrastructure and transport networks so that people can live in Hobsons Bay and work in Hobsons Bay as well as send their children and play in Hobsons Bay. That assumption might have to be revisited or tweaked in light of the new targets. So I welcome a strong, rational, strategic planning framework for the state which demands that we build better quality homes and we build better services to service those people who live in those better quality homes. So I just want to thank the team, particularly Ms Lunn and her team, for the excellent work done to date, and including this submission, and look forward to the conversation to come from the state government.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any speakers against the motion? Or any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Grimmer.
I'm happy to support this. I do think the state government does have a duty of care, and understandably we've been hearing about the media and conversations we hear from the community members. There's a crisis, but in my opinion, There was a crisis beforehand, so it's time and it's a duty of care, and I'm happy it's going out to consultation because it's not going to be an assumption by council or by anybody, it's going to be by the people. And I think this is also a gateway for residents to still hopefully reside in their great community where they've worked, served, finding their, career path or school, education, whatever. They deserve to be in their great community and have that connection. So I welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grammer. Any other speakers? Councillor Canada.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To help explain to people who are listening in, to put these housing targets into context, we have approximately 40,000 homes in Hobsons Bay. In June 2024, the state government released statewide housing targets suggesting that an additional 31,000 homes would need to be built in Hobsons Bay by 2051. Or in other words, that we increase the number of homes already in existence by almost 80% in the next 27 years. While I understand that there's a need for increased housing density, these targets set by the state government appear extreme to me. I would like to see the evidence from the state government on how and where they expect Hobsons Bay to put all of these homes. The targets have been dropped on us, similar to Champion Road, and the modelling has not been made public. As has been highlighted tonight, we don't know where they are to be placed, where's the land. Is there, for an example, an expectation that we erase all of our green spaces in the future? We don't know the answer to that question. And as has also been mentioned tonight, the targets become even more challenging when the state government has further restricted development with increased buffer zones to major hazard facilities, which also covers a large portion of Hobsons Bay. Are they going to waive these safety concerns? Are the safety concerns just token? There are many questions that need to be answered. I think it's important that the council urges the state government to release the details as to the location, the dwelling mix and expectations on how they've modelled these targets and how they expect us to deliver it. Our community has a right to see this data. And I want to acknowledge as well Ms Lunn and the work that she has done in finalising this addendum and for pushing back on this extreme ask. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Canada. Any other speakers? Motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Sutton-Legault, as the mover.
Thank you, and I support the comments of my colleagues. I think for us to find out about these targets through an article in The Age is hopefully not the way we're going to continue future consultation, because it's not really the best way for us to understand how we're going to deliver these 31,000 additional dwellings. It is important that we maintain a high quality of life, and yes, it is reasonable to think about us increasing our density, but we also need to think about, we have an ageing population, and we want to be able to encourage and help everyone have the best possible quality of life, and that's not necessarily in a high-rise building. I also worry that the cost of these additional dwellings is being moved to local councils to deliver, and I'd like to hear where the funding will come from for these new homes, and if it's more a question of how we're going to approve more developments. Again, where will we approve them, on what land, and who's going to build them? So I think there are lots of questions that still need to be answered, and I know that the team will work with the state government to the best of their capacity to find a solution. We've got a few years to do it, but of course we need to start now. So yes, it will be very interesting to see what happens next, and I hope that the state government takes a more consultative approach on this, and also takes into consideration that on the one hand they're asking for more homes, and on the other hand they're knocking down towers and closing other residences. So we have to get this balance right. It can't all be left with local government to sort this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is 8.3.2 Hobsons Bay Women's Advisory Group terms of reference. Are there any questions on this item? Seeking a mover. Moved by Councillor Sutton-Legault and seconded by Councillor Briffa. Councillor Sutton-Legault.
I'm delighted that we've reached this stage, that we're able to support the terms of reference of the Hobsons Bay Women's Advisory Group. This was a recommendation by myself and Councillor Briffa as designated Women's Charter champions, and I'm really happy that this committee this advisory group will happen and will actually meet very soon. So we're convening the Women's Advisory Group based on these terms of reference. They've been developed to set out the expectations and governance of the group. It's not a decision-making group, but I do hope that the council and staff listen to the feedback that comes through this group. Applications were made via the Participate Hobsons Bay website, and I believe we've had lots of applications, which is fantastic. And once adopted, will provide clarity for members regarding the responsibilities of the group and how it will operate, etc. So the group will start, I believe, in June, and will go for a year, and that will give us an opportunity to understand how well it works and how to make the best of that, the people who contribute and are part of that. So yeah, it's a really good outcome. A Women's Advisory Group was how I got involved in council in the first place, and that was my first exposure to council and to various people who I now think of as friends who were chairing that committee over that time. So I think it's a really excellent way for community members to get exposure to the workings of council from a slightly closer perspective, and again it helps reinforce our commitment to the Women's Charter, and I hope that more comes out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Councillor Briffa.
Thank you. Yes, advisory groups are a very important way for council to consult, hear from the community, and women make up a big portion of the community that we should hear from. I'd like to acknowledge and thank Councillor Sutton-Legault for her work on this, and it's been a pleasure working with you and council officers, including you, of course, Ms Lunn, on developing these terms of reference. I'm very much looking forward to this group. It's going to be quite sizable, I think. I'm sure there's going to be lots of very keen people to provide advice to the council, just as we're keen to hear from them. So very much looking forward to co-chairing this group and for it to start meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to congratulate Councillor Sutton-Legault and Councillor Tony Briffa for putting up their hand and advocating for this issue, and I've had great conversations with them both. There's still a lot of issues that haven't been fixed, you know, women and children, family violence, women who suffer health issues that are still underlying and not getting, you know, addressed, which stops them from the workplace or getting their education or raising their family or just well-being for themselves. And there's so much more, but what good hands we are. We got the Deputy and Councillor Briffa chairing this, so thank you. And it was actually great to go in a briefing where you're like, oh, this is great. This hearing statistics with more people applying. They actually got more people applying to be in the Women Advisors Committee meeting. So more numbers came forward than what they were required to do. So that was fantastic news in a council briefing. So good on you. Thank you, Ms Lung too, and thank you, Deputy and Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Any other? Councillor Muston.
Thank you. This is as it says in the notes, a tangible response to Council's commitment in the Victorian Local Government Women's Charter. And I believe, and I believe everyone in the chamber believes, that there should be an equality and equal right to be representatives in local government. This council, for the last 2 terms, has had a majority of women councillors, and I hope that next term that there'll be at least an equal number of women at the table participating in leadership and decision making within the council, and that those women be a diverse group as for the entire council to represent the diversity that's inherent in our community. We have a very diverse community, and that should be reflected in the people who represent them on council, and that people participate, not only as councillors but as citizens, and that participation is encouraged from everyone and all groups and from a diversity of people, so that people are empowered, encouraged and invited to participate in wielding power and making decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Well said. Any other speakers? I'll go back to you, Councillor Sutton-Legault, as the mover.
Thank you. Yes, as my colleague said, this is a response to the Council's commitment to the Victorian Local Government Women's Charter, supporting women's participation in Victorian local government. And I hope that by participating in this advisory group, you will get a sense of how interesting it is to participate in local government, and how you learn how to work with colleagues, how to understand the issues that are faced by council. Not everything is straightforward and takes a little bit of untangling at times. And I think it's good to have these sorts of advisory groups where you can bounce a few ideas around. They're not necessarily, they don't have the formality of a council meeting, but you have an opportunity to get different views and diverse views. And I think that's a really important thing, because you can very much get in your own zone and just think that you know how the world works. So having different people from different perspectives, I think that will be really helpful. And I'd like to say from my own perspective that I find the council environment a very safe space to work. I feel very well looked after when I come into the council chamber. The staff are very helpful, and I believe that people who join the advisory group will feel the same, have the same experience. And that will lead, as I said, to maybe a few people running for council in the future, which would not be a bad thing. But regardless, we have an opportunity to have another voice that will help inform the decisions that council make. And so I'm very, very happy that this advisory group is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. And echoing those remarks, Councillor Sutton-Legault, really good to see this going ahead, and well done to yourself as well as Councillor Briffa for pushing it along. Thank you. Next item is 8.3.3, Contract 2024.15, Provision of Meals, Hobsons Bay Meals on Wheels service. Are there any questions on this item? Yes. I'll go to Councillor Callender first, who had a hand up, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to ensure that there's no degradation of quality and service for the community, for the consumer, so I have a few questions. I'll ask through you. So first one, will the meals be freshly cooked quality meals, or will it be frozen microwave TV dinners?
Thanks through the Mayor, Councillor Callender. I can tell you now that there most certainly will not be just TV dinners. So under the new contract, the meal supplier is required to provide a choice of freshly cooked and chilled meal options that meet people's dietary, cultural and their health needs. Specifically, the meal supplier is required to comply with all the food standards for Australia and New Zealand, employ a qualified trade chef to oversee and monitor the day-to-day prep and packaging of the meals. They must provide meals to cover every day of the year, including public holidays. They've got to use a majority of fresh quality produce and limited frozen and convenience produce as part of the contract. And they've all got to provide meals that look good. So they've got to be something that people actually want to eat when they have their dinner. So something I think we'd all be happy to eat.
Some good answers there. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Next question. Will there be a difference in cost, and obviously not quality, but let's say cost to the user?
Thank you. No, there won't be any change in the cost to the end user, so it will be the same for our community members. Meals will continue to be provided at the current cost to the client. The tender process emphasised meal quality and variety rather than cost saving, so we haven't gone for anything that's more expensive, but we haven't tried to make things cheaper by being less tasty or appealing. And probably a good thing to let people know in the chamber is that taste testing was undertaken as part of the tender evaluation, so Ranahan's meals received very favourable in terms of taste and the look of the meal, as well as the packaging, so the way it comes to you, so that we hope that dinner time will continue to be a nice experience for people at no extra cost.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Next question. Is there a particular reason why council's changing the supplier?
Through the Mayor, yes, Councillor Calendar, there is. So the current contract's been with Western Health for over 10 years now, and that contract's expired. So as you know, we follow our procurement rules, Council's procurement rules. Given the dollar amount of the contract, we're required to tender this out. So Western Health is also moving to a frozen-only meal service. So our existing contractor that's now expired is only doing frozen meals. So given my answers to the questions before, we did want to get out there and re-tender it to make sure we could continue to offer fresh choices for people.
That's also good news. And last question. Has council actually sought any feedback from anybody who already uses the service from this supplier, like other councils?
Through the Mayor, yeah, that's a great question. And as part of the tender process and just good common sense, yes, we did. So Branahan supplies other councils, including Glen Ira and Kingston. And as part of the reference checking for the tender, we did reach out to them and get them to fill out an evaluation and feedback form about the quality as well as the service that people provided. And the feedback about this provider was really good. So yes, we have.
Thanks, Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Pretty much all my answers have been answered, so I had a whole list of questions, so thank you, Councillor and Mr Mayor. So I think the questions have been answered, so I'm happy to move it. I'm happy to move it then.
Yeah, to move and then seeking a second. Seconded by Councillor Marston. Councillor Grimmer.
All right. Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I've read in the CEO report, what a great connection Meals on Wheels is. It's not just, it's important to have our fresh produce, but it's also a great community connection as well. And I'm so pleased to see that there's allergies and cultural needs and choices for our great community. So I think that's really a great plus, because it's been an issue with allergies and cultural needs. So it's great that we can sustain that, and we've gone out to consultation. I think that's great. And I think it's just important that we do these type of, have these offerings to our public. So that's fantastic. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Marston is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to say how grateful I am for the process to get to this point where we can guarantee tasty meals for people who really look forward to these occasions, not only for the food itself, but for the company of the people delivering the meals. Just as important, I think. But it's essential that these meals are tasty and appetising, and when I step down as councillor, I'd be happy to come along and do some of the taste testing, particularly for the pastries. Just give me a call. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any speakers against the motion? Or any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Calendar.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a very important service that council provides, and I think my priority, similar to other councillors, would be to ensure that there's no degradation in quality and service. And that has been assured tonight, that the quality and the service will remain high. So based on that, I'm comfortable to support this. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll go back to you, Councillor Grimmer, as the mover.
No, great. I'm really happy that Council's supporting health and wellbeing for our community members. And I'm also happy, that's one of the love or joy of going to a briefing is listening to stuff like this. So this has been on a conversation we've had in many briefings. So thank you. Wholeheartedly endorse it. Thank you. And thank you, council officers, CEO and the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is 8.4.1, Pearce Street Altona endorsement of concept plans and consultation on options. Are there any questions? Yeah, Councillor Calendar.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First question through you. Can you please talk to what this proposal looks like for both the Pearce Street feature site and the section between Blythe Railway South, which currently contains a number of parklets?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So the proposal being put forward tonight, which aligns with the 2023 community service outcomes, includes works along Pier Street from Queen Street to Railway Street South. The section between Queen Street and Blythe Street is proposed to permanently close to traffic, transforming it into a pedestrian-friendly piazza with a modern aesthetic. Areas will be levelled to create a uniform space for outdoor dining and public use, and various activation options have been developed for community input. From Blythe Street to Railway Street South, footpaths will be extended while maintaining a vehicle and bus thoroughfare. Flexible car spaces will be doubled as outdoor dining areas on an opt-in basis for traders using a portable bollard system for separation. Safety barriers will ensure a secure pedestrian environment is maintained. Community consultation will be open for 4 weeks, commencing on Friday the 16th of August, as we consider feedback on this design.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next question through you again. You've touched on what some of the consultation will involve. Assume it'll be up online on the Participate page. Will there be any direct consultation with trader groups as well?
Yeah, thank you again for the question, Councillor. So we will have consultation via Participate. We'll also have a pop-up session in the precinct and also direct consultation with the local Traders Association. Promotion of the consultation period will be via normal communication channels, including social media and advertising. And I also will note that there is a separate report to come later this evening in relation to another consultation process that will run alongside this consultation, and that's in accordance with Section 223 requirements. And that's in relation to, for people to provide submissions to the potential closure of Pier Street in the precinct.
Thanks for those responses. No further questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. Are there any other questions? Seeking a move by Councillor Briffa, seconded by Councillor Callender. Councillor Briffa.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank officers for the amount of work that's gone into this and the community, because we have consulted perhaps to death, but it's good to be going out there again. We've heard from the community time and time again about the support for the various parklets and the outside dining in Altona. So it's good that we've put meat on the bones, put together some concept designs, and we are going to the community about it. So I look forward to that feedback. I'm also pleased that that's the next item, but that we're also going to community consultation about that public closure of that road. I think both of those things go hand in hand, and it's no use us going to all these problems with the designs if the road isn't going to be discontinued. So I'm very keen to hear from the community about both of those things, about those plans, as well as the closure of Pier Street. I'll leave it to there and perhaps speak about it further in the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Briffa. Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that I've fiercely supported over the years, and I'm glad to see it finally coming to light. I have spoken in depth to the executive about the latest proposal over the past week, and I've had a number of conversations about it with impacted traders in Pier Street and the Altona Village Traders Association president since the proposal was released in the agenda on Friday night. They've all had positive things to say, and they're happy with the change in strategy and excited by the proposal. I understand also that council executives will be meeting directly with the Altona Village Traders Association president later this week to discuss this in further detail, and I think that that's a great first step. At this point, it might be embarrassing for him, but I'd like to formally welcome back Mr. Irving, now in the role of Director of Infrastructure and City Services, because he has assessed the community consultation feedback with a fresh lens and applied a fresh approach, and I think that the community is really set to benefit from this. So thank you, Mr. Irving. The proposal is set to make Altona more of a destination. We only have one chance of doing this, and it really needs to be done properly, and I think that the approach that you've taken is a positive one. So thank you, Mr. Irving.
Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Are there any speakers against the motion or any other speakers? I'll go back to you, Councillor Briffa, as the mover.
Thank you. So just in summing up everything, I'm glad that we've gone through all this work. I'm very grateful for the work of the council officers. I think personally that this would be, a very positive thing for Hobsons Bay, but I'm equally keen not just to hear from traders. Altona and Pearce Street and that whole precinct belongs to the whole community, not just the traders. So I look forward to the feedback from the whole community and look forward to considering that with my colleagues then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is 8.4.2, permanent closure of Pearce Street, Altona. Councillors, are there any questions? Seeking a mover. Moved by Councillor Callender and a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Marston. Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With the consultation for the design work for the Pearce Street feature site taking place, it makes sense that the proposal to permanently close Pearce Street between Queen and Blythe Street also be consulted at the same time. This is a logical approach, so happy to support this going out for consultation in conjunction with the design work that's going out for the Pearce Street upgrades. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. Councillor Marston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And yes, I agree. I think it's a sensible approach. They're two separate things, obviously, asking the community about what they think of the design and in parallel asking people what they think of closing Pearce Street. But it means that we can do it as quickly as possible. This is a statutory process which is the subject of this motion, and I look forward to hearing the feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any speakers against the motion or any other speakers? Councillor Callender, I'll come back to you as the mover.
Nothing further to say. Happy to put it to the vote.
Great, I'll do that. All those in favour? Your motion is carried unanimously. Next item is 8.4.3, permanent closure of the Esplanade Altona hearing of submissions. Are there any questions? Seeking a mover. Moved by Councillor Callender and a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Briffa. Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just give me a second. This is simply to acknowledge that submissions have been received and will be considered with a report brought back to Council in the future in a September meeting. I'm keen to see the results and will be guided by the feedback that's been provided. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Briffa.
Yeah, look forward to the feedback before we make an informed decision. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the community come back with. Again, it's not just traders, but I want to hear from lots of community groups, residents. We all own this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against the motion or any other speakers? Councillor Callender, I'll come back to you as the mover.
Happy to put it to the vote.
I'll do that. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Next item is 8.4.4, Williamstown Swimming and Lifesaving Club, updated concept plans. Are there any questions? I'll go to Councillor Briffa first and then I'll come to you, Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, my question is to Mr Irving. Could you please provide me details so this proposal also removes 19 car parking spaces. So could you just explain what the annual revenue loss would be by us removing those car parking spaces?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So it is acknowledged that 19 car parking spaces are proposed to be removed under the current concept design, and that it is estimated to be approximately $30,000 per year of foregone revenue from the paid parking meters in that area.
Thank you, Mr Irving, and I think that's an important thing to note. And with the Mayor's approval, I think that should actually, it doesn't matter who asked the question, but just that it be noted that Mr Irving provided the advice that the removal of the 19 car parking spaces results in a loss of $30,000 per annum in revenue.
Yeah, happy to have that noted in the minutes. And Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just interested in knowing who actually owns the pool?
In terms of the pool is on the Williamstown Lifesaving Club. In terms of the exact ownership, I probably am not in a position to answer, so I might have to take it on notice. But it is advised in the report, in the officer report that is presented tonight, that the Williamstown Swim and Lifesaving Club have advised that they are comfortable to provide funding support towards works at the pool and ongoing maintenance at this point in time, but I'll have to come back exactly on status of ownership.
Okay, next question. What will happen to the pool if funding isn't obtained by them?
Well, in the proposed concept that is being presented tonight, is proposed to retain the pool. It is proposed that will be, though, shortened. At the moment, it is at a length of approximately 33 metres, so it will be looked to shorten to 25 metres. And so that the funding to carry out those works is being sought, and that the club is looking to work through the funding of that aspect of the project. But the exact determination of how much that costs at this point in time is not quite clear, because there are ongoing investigations that are reaching a final point, but still need to be worked through at this point in time.
Okay, and the next question for you again, Mr Mayor, is the pool safe? So if it remains as is it safe?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The investigation works at the moment are looking to determine that. Preliminary understanding of those results, whilst they're not final and they still need to be further validated, indicates that in its current state it is safe to use at this point in time. I guess what the investigation works are determining, more importantly, what's the life cycle left in terms of the shell and the key components of the pool. But at this point in time, based on what we know at this point, that the pool is safe.
Any other? Yeah, Councillor Sutton, go.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I know that this has been a long process, and there's been considerable consultation both with the wider community and with club members. Could officers just give us a little summary of the consultation process that's happened to get us to this point?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So there was an extensive consultation period carried out late last year, which ran consultation on the original concept that was put through. Following that, there was a period of time where the Lifesaving Club ran, in sense, their own internal consultation to ensure that they had a full understanding of what their members' views and perspectives. The club presented that to officers and councillors, I think approximately about 3 months ago, from memory. And then from that point in time, officers have worked collaboratively with the club to respond, to understand that feedback, but also at the same time taking on board the feedback from the general consultation period, which was from the wider community, to reach this point in time where officers believe we've pulled together a concept that responds to the community and to the club, but also acknowledges the significant challenges we have with this project and the risks associated with it.
Thank you. And if I may just follow up, and is it your understanding that the club and the members are supportive of taking on the responsibility of the future management of the pool?
Based on discussions that officers have had with club members on those meetings and that we've been working through, is our understanding at this point in time. We've got written confirmation that the club is supportive of taking on those elements around the pool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Are there any other questions? Seeking a
I'm keen to move it with a change.
change?
Would would you like me to read that out? It has been circulated, so hopefully we've got this, but the revised motion is that council, 1, endorses the concept design for the Williamstown Swimming and Lifesaving Club redevelopment for the purposes of public consultation for 4 weeks from 14 August 2024 until 10 September 2024, noting A, is up there? The retention of the swimming pool is to be funded by the club, SLSC, and is not part of the budgeted works. B, there is a current estimated shortfall of 2.844 million to implement this design with all options included, brackets, and excluding any additional funding required for the pool, close brackets. C, the future management of the kiosk/cafe is yet to be determined by the council. And D, the design results in the removal of 19 existing car parking spaces. 2, seeks an executed deed or agreement by the Williamstown Swimming and Lifesaving Club accepting responsibility for the retention of a swimming pool and the funding they are committed to providing for the project implementation. 3, acknowledge the goodwill and collaboration of the Williamstown Swimming and Lifesaving Club in partnering with the council to achieve the best outcome for the community. And 4, receives a future report following the public exhibition period, including a detailed project plan and budget, as well as options analysis with financial forecasts for the kiosk/cafe. So moved.
The motion on screen conforms the motion you're wanting to move.
Yeah, that was the most recent one, yeah.
Seeking a seconder.
Second.
Yeah, Councillor Marston. Before I go to debate, any questions from councillors? Yeah. Councillor Sutton,
Is it correct that the in this current plan, the pool, with the condition of the funding as outlined, the member lawn and the cafe are all to be retained?
Thank you for the question, councillor. So in the concept plan, it is proposed that the member lawn and the kiosk are retained in their current form.
Absolutely.
And also, just to clarify the last point of the amended motion regarding the financial forecast for the kiosk, is it the case that the revenue from the kiosk has no bearing on the development project as such, that these are 2 separate things?
Thank you for the question, councillor. At this point in time, we are progressing with the project, not taking that into consideration. And the project is not dependent on working through that element at this point in time. But note that how things unfold tonight, we'll look to consider it.
Thank you very much. That helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton, go.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Redford is the mover.
Thank you very much. Mr Mayor, I'm really glad that we've gotten to this point. I would like to firstly acknowledge the good work of council officers, but also of the goodwill and the work of the club in working with us to come to a solution. Just today I spoke with the Vice President, Joel Goody, and have communicated previously with Claire Howell, the President. The club are definitely, 100% behind this, and they're very, very supportive. And it's great that we've come to this point because, there was some time ago, not in the far too distant past, where that wasn't the case. So it is really good that we're working very well with the club. In terms of the motion before us, I have actually gone through that whole motion with the club and emailed it to them, discussed it with them this afternoon, and there was no issue. In fact, they understood and accepted all of it, including the part 2 in terms of the wanting an agreement in terms of the quantum and accepting the responsibility for the retention of the swimming pool. They have previously provided us with a letter outlining that, but of course, it's only only appropriate in the context of a big project like this that we would want that agreement formalised by way of some sort of legal instrument. I'm glad that we've got number 3 in there, because I think it is important to acknowledge that goodwill and collaboration of the club. And I thank council officers and councillors, and in particular Councillor Sutton-Legault and Councillor Marsden, for their assistance and feedback into this draft motion. So really appreciate that. Sorry, and you too, Mr Mayor, in our discussions as well. It really has been a collaboration. It's obvious that the council wants a good outcome for the community at this venue and this club. It is important to note those few different things. The things like the removal of the 19 existing car parking spaces and that loss of revenue, I wanted it to be acknowledged, because that is an ongoing revenue loss for the council, and in other words, it's an ongoing contribution in effect of the 30k per annum. So I did want that to be acknowledged, and that should be considered when we also consider the future management options of the kiosk, but that'll be a matter that'll come to the council at a later date. And I think that's probably enough for now. I'm very happy to be moving this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor River, and Councillor Marsden as the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it's great to get to this point. It's been a long process, and the October concept plans were met with great interest by the community, and a lot of anger, it's fair to say, about the proposal to remove the pool. And the response to that was to pivot, to listen, to acknowledge. And I remember those discussions. I went to each of the public consultation sessions and heard and experienced the feeling in the room, and the feelings not only from the club but from the community. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, first of all, that there was a significant response that has guided us to where we are today. And that response has been steered by the club and by their appointed member representative, Jason Wyatt. And I just wanted to acknowledge his extraordinary contribution in understanding what the community had to say in close conjunction with the council officers who shared that feedback with the club, and then worked hand in glove with the club to understand what was preferred, what the community liked about the proposal, what they hated about the proposal, and the very clear feedback that they wanted as a community to retain the pool, very dear to a lot of people for many, many years. So we find ourselves here after a hell of a lot of work from the club and from the appointed member representative, who's gone through each objection, each submission, and discovered what it is that can be included in the proposed design that we have here before us tonight. So this will go out as for more consultation, but it's really a way of checking that we got it right, and that working with the club, that we have a proposal that's going to work, that the community want, and that we can fund within the envelope that we've been given in conjunction with the state. There's obviously some risks inherent in this approach, as there is with all projects, but given the scale of the project and the ambition of the community, the club and the council, we have to acknowledge that the project reference group themselves have recognised that a number of project risks remain, and they include the need for discipline, that the project scope remain within the funding envelope, and we've got explicit endorsement and agreement from the club on that issue. Melbourne Water approval and other Marine and Coastal Act consent through DECA, because this is all predicated on a revised sea level rise datum and a need to build up the surface of the site. And some of the design elements presuppose wet areas that don't need elevating. So these are concept designs after all, pretty pictures which embody the aspirations of the club, the community and the council, but nevertheless have to meet with reality of not only state government approvals and the agencies, but also engineering considerations and the associated costs. We obviously have to be mindful of the preservation of the heritage overlay. It's a site that's very dear to the community, as we've seen over the last year. There's of course the planning permit considerations, which will also demand council's looks at the technical aspects, as we always do, in a fair and objective way. The unknowns that surround the swimming pool as well, because we don't quite know, although we're doing everything we can, in my understanding, to understand the condition of the swimming pool, including invasive tests and drilling holes and the like, to understand what lays beneath. And then of course there's all the other considerations in a coastal site subject to flooding and saltwater damage when it comes to wiring and plumbing a new and ambitious development like this. So I'm looking forward to hearing the discussions. I think they'll be a lot more relaxed and a lot less contentious than they have been in the initial consultations following the October release last year. But I'm really glad to know that we're here, that we're on the same page, so to speak, and I again want to thank the club committee, the president Claire, the member representative Jason, and with your indulgence, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just call out the extraordinary contribution of Jake Travaskis, who has maintained a really trusting and open relationship on an ongoing basis every week, really, since last October, to liaise between the council and the club and understand what's possible, what we can't do, what the community wants and what the club wants to see. And so he's done an extraordinary amount of work at great personal cost, no doubt to him, because he's had to do that on top of everything else he does. But that's really ensured that trust between the council, club and community has got us to the place where we are today, where we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any speakers against the motion? Or any other speakers? I saw Councillor Callender. Did you? Yeah, it's very challenging, this. Councillor Sutton-Legault, I'll go to you, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Callender.
So echoing everything that my colleagues have said, and to reinforce that the purpose of the Lifesaving Club is to save lives, and that this is a commitment to safety as much as it is to a building and a membership group and a community asset. People don't drown when they swim between the flags. So I think it's a really important asset for Hobsons Bay. And of course, it's a very sensitive site. It's in one of the most beautiful parts of Hobsons Bay. And we want to honour the site and honour the intention of why we want to put resources into this type of club, is to help train people to swim safely and enjoy the beach safely. And that's what this whole thing is about. So I'm glad that we've reached this stage. I think this came up in about 6 months into our term. So it's been going on for a long time. And I do thank the state government for the $11.3 million that has gone into this project, which was supported by $3 million from the council. And I hope when they want to give us another $12 million, they just give us a little bit more notice, then maybe we can plan a little bit better. But we'll take anything you'd like to give us for future projects, now that we've got this one underway. I would like to acknowledge the ward councillors, in particular Councillor Peter Hemphill, who's not here today, but he's been a great advocate and sort of pushing for this project to be delivered, and the same for my colleague, Councillor Marsden. And we, together with our other councillor colleagues, have really wanted to see this come to this point before the end of this term. So I'm delighted that is actually happening. And I do hope that the members and the community are happy with the result, and that we can now move forward and that we can start taking down the signs that we're stealing the pool, because we're really not. I think it's a good result, and I thank again all the staff who've been willing to work together on this to get us here. And when we receive feedback, and I know that we will, that it moves the project forward further. We've had more than 600 individual pieces of feedback, over 500 people engaged with council during drop-in sessions and other things, and I myself and ward councillors attended many of those sessions. So we have been listening to the community, and I believe this delivers, if not a perfect outcome, certainly nothing's ever perfect, as close as we could get to delivering what the community wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Go. Councillor Canada.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are some elements and risks in this motion that I can't help but feel uneasy about. But Councillor Briffa, however, has stated that they drafted their motion and in this instance circulated their draft motion to both the President and Vice President of the club to seek feedback and direct input before finalising it, and that both the President and Vice President were comfortable with it. This is going up for public exhibition, so there is an opportunity for further conversations and feedback. So as always, happy to hear that feedback. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Canada. Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. This has been a long journey, and especially for the ward councillors. I know you've been going to consultation, and I know the council briefings has been long, but it's important. I've witnessed when I toured, I've actually gone and met with the club on a few occasions, including with Mayor Briff at the time. We went there, we spoke to the club. I was even fortunate enough to see someone, it's a good news story, getting saved. They were drowning and they had an incident, so I was there and it was amongst it and it was chaos, but good news story. They survived, and thank you to the lifesavers. So, yeah, and I also got to acknowledge, which I did in council and I've shared, that the club has supported kids in Laverton with swimming classes. So I acknowledge that, and the club's been great, and ward colleagues, former mayor and council group, it's been a long journey, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Briffa, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And it was very remiss of me not to call out Jake Travaskis, Mr. Travaskis in particular. So I do like to personally thank him for his amazing work with the club. Just to clarify, whilst I did circulate the motion, the revised motion, to both the President and Vice President, it was the Vice President that I had the discussion with and who I went through the motion with. The Vice President called me this morning whilst actually I was at hospital with my wife, and I told him to call him back. We ended up having a discussion later in the afternoon. So just to clarify those discussions, and there was no breach of confidentiality given that it was something that I drafted. Anyway, I am very pleased that we're at this stage. I very much look forward to the community's feedback, including the club. But, you know, I'm really pleased that we're at this point. And I think, I was going to use a sailing metaphor here, but I won't, because it's not the sailing club, it's the swimming and life-saving club. But, yeah, I'm glad that we've saved this project. There you go, how's that? And very much look forward to it being developed, because let's face it, everybody wants it, they deserve it, they're an awesome club, so let's just get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. I'll put the motion.
But I probably should have also just quickly acknowledged the state government for their contribution to it as well. I mean, you know, they're chipping in more than 11 million to this project, so they should be also acknowledged and thanked. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 8.4.5, renaming of pavilion at HC Kim Reserve. Are there any questions in relation to this motion? Councillor Canada.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, can you please provide some background just for listeners into why the name is being changed from SG Macintosh Pavilion to Macintosh Pavilion?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The naming rules for places in Victoria do not permit the use of initials within place names, and so that's why the officer's recommendation tonight is that the pavilion become the Macintosh Pavilion, so that we don't avoid our name to be not supported when submitted to the state government.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and just along that vein, Mr Irving, and I assume places like JT Gray Reserve, we didn't name it while that convention came in. When we did name it, even though we've opened that pavilion last year, when we named it, that was the convention at the time, or was allowed at the time.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So this is in relation to new names where you're formalising. Existing names do not have to go back in time to be renamed, and places like JT Gray Reserve or even the HC Kim Reserve, where this pavilion sits on, still are able to retain those names. It's only for future names.
Any other questions? Seeking a mover? Moved by Councillor Calendar, seconded by Councillor Calendar.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given that this is administrative in nature, I'm happy to support it. Nothing further to say. Thank you.
Councillor Brewer?
Yeah, it might sound administrative. I'm happy to support this, and in a sense, it was already Macintosh Pavilion. That was named that years and years ago. I can understand members of the club that didn't know this, that had a keen interest to name it after Tony Cassar, who was an amazing member of the club, who dedicated so much of his life to the club, and you know, them wanting to honour him in that way. So I can certainly understand the request and the confusion. Happy to support that the name continues as the Macintosh Pavilion, and I'm very certain that the club will continue to honour the contribution, as significant as it is, from Tony Cassar in many ways, including the Tony Cassar Cup, I think it is, or the game that they play, and other ways as well. So I just thank the club. It was a privilege, Mr Mayor, to be able to open it a few weeks ago. The club are very excited about it. I can't wait to see games played there, and I know that it was a long time coming, but gee, it's been done well, and I'm looking forward to yeah, as I said, to the club just loving it and cherishing it and having people play there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Are there any speakers against the motion or any other speakers? Councillor Marston.
Yeah, I support the motion and the naming of the pavilion to remain as the Macintosh Pavilion. Stanley Gordon Macintosh was obviously key not only to the club but also to the Shire of Altona, and was president in 1966. It's appropriate that Macintosh Pavilion remain the name, and that the family enjoy the recognition that the official naming of the building affords the memory of Stanley Gordon Macintosh. It was obviously a generous concession by the Cassar family and the club to accept that while there was a majority of people who requested the AF Cassar Pavilion be the name, that was withdrawn at the behest of the family, and as a recognition of the existing name of the clubhouse. And so I'd just like to wish the family good luck and have all our fingers crossed to have the geographic names Victoria support our application to have it named the Macintosh Pavilion.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Calendar, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Next item is 8.4.6, Contract 2023.24 Racecourse Road, Altona, Culvert and Ford Crossing Upgrade. Are there any questions in relation to this item?
Yeah. Thank you. I'll just keep it brief, given the question that I asked earlier in the meeting. But just the question is simple, I guess. It's for the 2.4 mil, what do we get?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. I might just look to bring up some plans so that I can work through some of the details of what we get for that. So it's a culvert structure, includes 5 culverts. I'm just going to try and zoom in so I can get the exact dimensions. Uh, 3 by 3 by 1.5. We get a new surface on top that it both accommodates vehicular traffic and foot and cycle traffic as well, so that a shared path is provided through the area, and the road approaches are renewed, which are in poor condition as well.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, will the plans, schematics, drawings, whatever, be available on our website so people can actually see what we're doing if they're not up there already?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. If they're not already, we'll be able to provide that information to the community.
I have a question. It's just come to mind. The event of flooding, did you tonight say 1 in 2? Because I recall hearing 1 in 5 elsewhere.
The design is for 1 in 2, which in a sense is a 50% probability that it could flood each year. Yeah. So that's the design that's been put forward in the that we're looking to deliver and build.
How often, through you, Mr. Mayor, how often would you say that this bridge, like the Ford Bridge, currently floods?
Well, at the moment it's got a probability of 100% that potential could flood 100% throughout a year. We haven't got exact data of how many times it floods per year, but anecdotally, we're looking at that happens, probably nearly every month. But of course, it's all dependent on when rainfalls events occur. There might be a period where you have 6 months where it doesn't flood because we don't have that significant rainfall, and then you might have a period where you might have 2 or 3 flooding events over a month because it's an incredibly wet month that comes at us.
And through you again, Mr. Mayor, how much higher is this new bridge structure going to be above and beyond what it currently sits at?
So the approximate height that it'll be raised towards is 1.7 metres above what it currently sits at this point in time.
Thank you. Sorry, and I just wanted to clarify because the word bridge has been used a number of times. Mr. Irving, just a correction, this is not a bridge, is it? It's a culvert with a road crossing. So we're going from a ford, which always allows for water to inundate it, to a culvert that allows water to go through it, but it's not it's not a bridge.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. Yes, it is a culvert structure. It is not a bridge structure, and it is not an existing structure as a ford, so it's moving from a ford to a culvert structure.
Seeking a mover.
Moved.
Moved by. Oh, sorry, I saw Councillor Calendar, so I'm going to go to Councillor Calendar and then seeking a seconder. Yeah, Councillor Marsden.
Happy to do an arm wrestle, Councillor Marsden. Happy to support the awarding of the contracts to get the upgrade on the Ford Bridge. I'm going to call it a Ford Bridge. Calling it a Ford seems strange. On Racecourse Road underway. This is a flooding disaster. It is in extremely poor condition, and upgrading it to overcome some of the flooding events there is long overdue. This will increase the height, we heard tonight, 1.7 metres above where it currently sits, and reduce the frequency of flooding. We've learnt that addressing the flooding risk in its entirety is potentially not possible given the environmental impacts, and would also add to a significantly higher cost regardless. This upgrade will also assist in easing congestion at the Millers Road, Corrick Creek Road intersection, which is an absolute nightmare at peak times. I have no doubt that our community will be happy with this upgrade going through and being prioritised, and to finally see it underway. So thank you, Mr Irving, once again for getting this through. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Calendar, and Councillor Master as the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this culvert will connect Strand Ward and Cherry Lake Ward and complete the connection along the Bay Trail, which is our premier trail, which is the jewel in the crown of Hobson's Bay. It's a highly trafficked area on foot, on bike, on wheelchair, and it's quite risky, particularly if there's a bit of rain about or if the tides are high, or both, to even plan to go via the flood as it is now, particularly on an electric bike or an electric wheelchair, or if you don't want to get your feet wet. And many a council meeting I've sat here with boots full of water because the river levels were up on that particular Tuesday night. So this is something that I've been looking forward to for 8 years and really glad that it came to pass. It's obviously critical that it's safe to cross, it's convenient, and that it doesn't, as my colleague said, force vulnerable road users, whether they're walkers, cyclists or wheelchair users, to somehow try and negotiate the Millers Corroit roundabout, which is just not designed for that. It's a hair-raising experience in a car, let alone a bicycle. And I don't even want to think what it would be like to try and navigate your wheelchair down Corroit Creek Road to try and get onto Millers Road, to somehow get back on the trail. So this represents a significant upgrade in safety and amenity to those people who walk the Bay Trail and enjoy the connection of that extraordinary piece of infrastructure that is now connected all the way through past Sanctuary Lakes with the new connection, and it'll only grow in importance over the years as we connect those segments of the shared paths from the coast up further north to the highway and elsewhere. So fantastic news, really welcome. Obviously a really pretty place too, full of ducks and fish and the like, and pelicans and swans, and I just hope that they enjoy the culvert as much as we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any speakers against the motion or any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Briffa.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in two minds about this motion, to be honest. What I would have loved to have seen here was some sort of deal with Greater Western Water, where we chip in for this because it's a culvert for their asset as well. So they chip in, we chip in, and we also chip in to do the Nellie Street drain. And, you know, Greater Western Water and Council also partner in that. I think had we been able to partner with them to achieve both the Nellie Street drain and this culvert, would have been an exceptional outcome. That Nellie Street drain, which affects, you know, Cressa Reserve, the Altona Boat Ramp, the Altona Sailing Club, the Angling Club, you know, that's been on the cards for, God, since I think it might have been the 2000, actually, so 24 years in the Cressa Reserve Master Plan. And Council has had numerous goes with Melbourne Water, Greater Western Water, to go into some sort of joint venture to underground that drain. At the moment, it's an open drain. It's just a huge barrier to the reserve, to all the users. It's, you know, ends up providing a horrific, disgusting smell when it backs up with seaweed, etc. So that's what I would have liked. I mean, I'm still pleased that we're doing this, but I would have loved for that option to have been considered, and hopefully Council might consider that, and, you know, still have discussions with Greater Western Water about potentially doing both of those things. But ultimately, I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Yeah, Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. Echo what my colleagues have said. I do agree with what Councillor Briffa has said. Historically, we've done that before and we saw a great outcome. near the neck of the woods where I reside. So we've had that near Burns Road. So we really saw a great outcome, including reduced flooding, also recycled water that's getting distributed at our sporting ground. So these are the conversations definitely I'd like to bring more in the council. So I definitely agree what Councillor Briffa and my colleagues have said. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
also, sorry, apologies, it's great to have an inclusive environment for this project. So
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Any other speakers? Councillor Callender, I'll go back to you as the mover.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is something that's been in existence as an issue since I can ever remember. So to suggest that City West Water or the state government were potentially not aware of community sentiments, or that this Ford Bridge would flood and propose ongoing problems to our community is just outrageous. Getting them to contribute money to any project
Point of order.
is like pulling teeth.
One moment.
it's
Councillor Callender.
historically happened before.
Just one moment. We've got a point of order, which we'll deal with.
Yep, I'm just taking my time to
Yes,
just...
Councillor Briffa.
Bear with me. Oh, sorry, let me just do this. Okay, sorry. So the point of order is that under 8.18.3, point 3, improper. I didn't make some of those comments that Councillor Callender has said that I made, and happy for us to play back the video. But you know, I think it's improper to suggest that we haven't consulted with Greater Western, used at City West Water, and I think I was not characterised, or what I've said was misrepresented by Councillor Callender, and I'm happy for us to look at or play back what it's been recorded. So
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Give me one
Sure.
moment.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to withdraw the point of order.
Yeah.
Done.
Just so
But I
that we-
kindly ask that
Yeah.
people just keep it to the matter of fact and not misrepresent what other councillors say.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Briffa. And noting you've withdrawn it, the honest truth for me is I can't completely be sure whether it was representative or not. But Councillor Callender, if you could, as you proceed with your remarks, just be mindful of being respectful, etc. But I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Like I said, it's this Ford Racecourse Road has been a complete disaster since I can remember. And I personally, and I have no doubt that the rest of our community will also be grateful and pleased to hear that it will be upgraded with a 1.7 metre uplift in height to reduce the instance of flooding. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to put this to a vote.
Thank you. I'll do that. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Councillors, we're almost at time.
Yes, move half an hour extension.
Thank you. And second, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. The next item, I declared a conflict of interest on up front. It's a material conflict of interest due to a family member who owns a property in the vicinity of this playground upgrade. So I'll ask Deputy Mayor Sutton Legault to take the chair, and I'll leave the chamber for this item.
Thank you. So this is item 8.4.7, contract 2023.32 Leo Hoffman Reserve, Newport, playground upgrade. Do we have any questions? No? Seeking a mover?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grimmer, second. Councillor Marston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The recommendation is that we award contract 2023.32 for Leo Hoffman Reserve Playground upgrade to Rainscapes at a final lump sum cost of $1,157,046, including GST, and that we delegate authority to the CEO to execute that agreement, and delegating authority to officers to approve variations of the lump sum, including GST, in line with the current improved financial delegations. This is a well-loved reserve at the end of Newcastle Street, so in proximity to the primary schools. There's a couple of schools there, and well used by the neighbourhood kids. It's evolved from a fairly ordinary patch of grass, which was neighbouring the former Arabic Women's Centre, and is now ripe for redevelopment in line with our 10-year open space strategy. It's there'll be quite a bit of population growth in that area, and the Hoffman Reserve really serves a vital function in health and recreation for young people and people of all ages to just dwell in the spot. But the works will consist of an upgraded playground for all ages and abilities, and we've seen the success of the one in Spotswood, right, for older people. Increased pathway network through the reserve, providing accessible connections, an extension to the playing area, the tennis rebound wall and half court for basketball and netball, new community picnic area next to the playground, consisting of a shelter, barbecue, drinking fountain and bin surrounds. Seating throughout the reserve, landscape including new tree planting, which is always a good thing, and landscaped areas to provide shade and comfort to active and passive spaces throughout the reserve. So this is an emphasis of our open space strategy now, is that we rely less on physical infrastructure and more on natural play, rock and the like. Oval restoration with irrigation, ninja-style agility circuit for teens and young adults and current councillors, funded by 80,000 external grant, which sounds like fun, and restoration of existing pergola, which is again funded by a $95,000 extended grant. So I'd just like to acknowledge that those grants have come as funding from the Westgate Neighbourhood Fund and from Sport and Recreation Victoria, who've contributed $80,000 and $95,000 in turn. So this is a really good news story for Hobsons Bay and for the lucky kids and residents within cooee of Leo Hoffman Reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Marsden. Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. You echo what my colleagues said, so thank you for highlighting some great outcomes for this. I'm a council for the wetlands, but I share the love, so I'm definitely going to support this. It's great to have, as my council colleague said, all ages, Councillor Marsden said, all ages and ability. It's been a very big advocacy item of mine with my council colleagues, so I'm really thrilled that that's happening. I share the love. I saw great things happening in our ward, particularly with Laverton, our Tana Meadows, Seabrooks coming next, so definitely support it, so thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? To you, Councillor Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I just want to say on behalf of the Strand councillors that we couldn't be more pleased that the community will enjoy another really high quality upgrade. You know, it's always good news when you upgrade a park, right?
Absolutely.
Or plant new trees or put in new barbie. Yeah, people get a lot of use out of it, and it's a really good investment in community infrastructure, health and wellbeing.
Thank you. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you.
I tried.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland, go. Appreciate it. Councillors, next item is 8.4.8, contract 2023, 0.57, Lebanon Football Club, female-friendly change rooms. Are there any questions? Seeking a mover? Councillor Grimmer? And seconded by Councillor Briffa. Councillor Grimmer.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm so honoured to have this in front of me with our great community. This is my old stomping ground. This is where I played football, and I also had a lot of social gatherings. Just a bit after, 2 weeks after I had my little bambino, I played for the women's football, so it was exciting. But I definitely agree for this movement. I'm also proud as a councillor that I was with Councillor Tyler. We went to events, we watched a few games, we spoke to the committee, we've spoken, and just to hear with council officers as well, to hear the insight of the future of the club. So I think this sends an important message, I really do, if the club is requiring this, I think it sends an important message to be inclusive, to have their share and what they deserve, because we are progressing, a bit overdue, playing with football and women. We are equally just as great or not greater. So I'm really proud for this, and let's move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Briffa.
Yes, thank you. Very pleased to be seconding this. I know how excited both of you are as ward councillors about this. I'm sure it's going to be very well received. I do want to again thank the state government for providing funding towards this. The $1.3 million allocation is a significant amount. So Matt Halakari has been very good in supporting our local clubs, which is great to see. So very happy to second this motion and look forward to actually seeing it on the ground. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion or any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Sutherland, go.
Thank you. Very happy to support this as well. And I really believe that great facilities lead to great results. And where you put the facilities and the resources in place, you get fantastic outcomes. And you only have to look at the result of women in sport in the Olympics and the number of gold medals they achieved. And if you give the resources, you get great results. So I'd really like to acknowledge Laverton Football Club, female-friendly change rooms, fantastic result. And I look forward to seeing them when they're all done, and we can see what comes out of the club, and I'm sure it will be wonderful things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland, go. Any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Mustin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Laverton Football Club was established in 1926, which is 98 years ago. 100 years in 26, yeah. And now we have female change rooms, yeah, which is great. So it didn't take 100 years, but almost, and that's fantastic. I mean, it's part of a movement I think that started in I can't remember when the first grants were given out for women's and girls' change rooms, but it was 2016 or thereabouts, and it proved so popular and so needed that it's happened every year since, and I'm really glad that women and girls in Laverton will be able to run on in the black and white. And Mr. Mayor, Khan, the Mighty Magpies.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Any other speakers? Councillor Grimmer, I'll come back to you.
Thank you. Great to hear feminists and activism in talking about this. So thank you, colleagues. I deeply appreciate it. As I said, this is a stomping ground for me, and Councillor Tyler and I served there, and we do love watching their games and speaking with them. But I also want to acknowledge MP Matthew Hilakari, who's been quite active and innovated in our great community, coming to events, coming to listening. And this is just a prime example of state government's testimony. So I'm really happy. I also want to acknowledge the football club for all your efforts, for all your great achievements, and you're becoming more and more progressive. And also want to acknowledge Formula Grec and his partner Catherine Grec, because they really innovated to put the women's football club and motivate us, and did a lot of work behind the scenes. And I deeply appreciate it. I lost 35 kilos after I had the little bambino, so in less than 3 months. So it was pretty cool. So that was a great story. It was health and wellbeing. So thank you to the club. We appreciate you, and thank you to state government and council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item is 9.1, delegate reports. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Seeking a mover. Moved by Councillor Briffa, and a seconder. Councillor Sutton, go.
Thank you. Yeah, just a report from delegate reports. I'm very happy to defer to Councillor Sutton Lego. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton, go.
Thank you. So there are 2 reports here for the Metropolitan Transport Forum of June and July. And of course, there's an enormous amount of conversation around transportation generally, around frequency of bus services, and the many big infrastructure projects that relate to transport. You only have to look at what's happening all the way through all these municipalities to see how many transport projects are underway, from level crossing removals through to the tunnel, North East Link, Suburban Rail Loop, the airport link. There's all of these major projects that are underway, and all of our councils are dealing with those in different ways. So I'd like to thank all of those who contribute to these forums and make the time to put these presentations and submissions together. It's very useful to hear what the other councils are doing and have an opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Motion. Councillor Briffa, I'll come back to you.
Happy to go to the vote.
I'll do just that. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item is the notice of motion to acknowledge the passing of the late Councillor Sarah Carter, and councillors, I'll seek a mover.
Yeah, I'm sorry, obviously happy to not happy, but it's with sadness that I move this.
And a seconder. Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you. Yes, it's with great sadness that I move this condolence motion. Like many people, I'm still very shocked that Councillor Carter has passed away. So Councillor Sarah Carter was a councillor with the City of Maribyrnong until her sudden shock death last week. She was first elected in 2008 and re-elected in 2012, 2016 and 2020. She also served as mayor from 2011-12, 2020-21 and 2022-23. So, yeah, she's 2 of those terms that she served as mayor. I was also mayor of Hobsons Bay. And last year, when I was mayor, we worked very well together. And I think about the work that we did around the LGBTIQA+ community, which she was very supportive of. I think it's only appropriate that Hobsons Bay City Council acknowledges the wonderful work that she's done for the Maribyrnong community, but also the western suburbs more generally. Councillor Carter worked for Save the Children, in addition to being a councillor and mayor, and was very passionate in advocating for initiatives that foster a thriving community and particularly to our close neighbours in the Asia-Pacific region. I know that in talking with her, we've done a lot of work in some of the similar areas where I worked with the Federal Police, places like Solomon Islands, you know, and she's recently done work in Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea and other places as well. Her loss will undoubtedly be felt by lots of people in Maribyrnong, the Maribyrnong Council, her family, friends and our region. I extend my sincerest condolences to Councillor Carter's family, including her partner, her friends, councillor colleagues, people at Save the Children and the Maribyrnong community. And I understand that her funeral will be on this Friday, and I can just imagine how many people will be there at that to celebrate her life and her amazing contribution. Vale, Sarah Carter.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Councillor Grimmer.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. Yes, I do agree. This is a huge tragedy for such a young person. I met Sarah Carter over 10 years ago at this building. I was going to a council meeting and she was present. She was present because she wanted to help women in local government. She didn't mind any affiliation. She just wanted to help. She didn't mind what political party or if you're independent, she just wanted to help you. She gave her time and her energy to helping women. She talked about different issues in her community, but also on different government levels and supporting women in local government and also the needs of our community, which included health, women in sport, and anything else you'd like to ask her. So I want to thank her for giving her time to Hobson Bay. She gave a lot of residents an opportunity to speak to her afterwards as well, after having a long day and doing all these seminars. That's not even her council that she was elected to. At that time, she was elected to Maribyrnong, but she gave her time and energy. And we all deeply appreciate her in that room and the energy and the knowledge and just grace what she brought to Hobson Bay. It is a shock. I've seen her out and about in the last few years and even much recent, and she's doing her thing and that's serving her great community. So I am sorry, and I do send my condolences to her family, her friends and her colleagues, because it is such a huge tragedy for this young woman. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grimmer. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Briffa, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm very happy to put that to the vote, noting that you should have the opportunity to say a few words as well.
Thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Briffa and Councillor Grimmer, for what you've said. It's an occasion where words almost, they don't even, almost hesitant to speak to. It's just such a shock, and words cannot possibly reflect the sadness that I feel and also the sadness that's felt across the West. Sarah was someone who was so full of life, and she had this unique ability to light up any room she was in and also connect with people, regardless of their age, background. She and I hosted a youth mental health forum not long ago, and the way she was able to engage with those young people, I'll never forget. She was able to get down on their level, make them feel like they were the only one that mattered. Just such a massive heart. And in reading through, and I'd encourage people if they haven't, there's incredible tributes to Sarah online, hundreds of them, and all touching on similar themes, that she listened, she cared, she acted. And as you touched on, Councillor Briffa, beyond her role on council, her contribution through Save the Children, she's someone that I will never, ever, ever forget. She made such a contribution and was a really, really special person. may she rest in peace, and the thoughts of myself and also this council are with her family, and then also, of course, as you touched on, Maribyrnong Council. Councillors, next item is notice of motion 1256, proposal to keep additional records of council meetings and committees. Are there any questions on this item?
Yeah, if I may, I'm not sure who the best person to ask this question to, and it might be maybe the CEO, but I'm not sure. So up until, I'm not sure when, we used to do records of assemblies of councillors. So we used to do this, and I understand that was a statutory requirement at the time. Do you know when that changed? Because I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't even aware that it had changed from the Act.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. And I might seek clarification if I get this wrong through our Manager of Corporate Integrity. I believed it changed with the introduction of the new Act.
Right, so 2023. And with the introduction of the new Act, did we cease doing Assembly of Councillors, or did we keep maintaining them for some records, or what do we do?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So we keep a record as we have previously, not because it's a requirement, because we feel like it's a good practice, but that's really for administrative purposes at this stage.
And finally, and perhaps it should be for consideration as a change to this motion, when we revise the governance rules, will this be incorporated in it, or should this motion specify that about the provision of Assembly of Councillors in governance rules?
Thanks for the question. It's probably not for me to say whether it will be included, but it's probably an appropriate time for it to be considered. That's probably all I'll say at this stage.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought that, rather than a resolution that's, just a once-off, it would make sense to formalise it in some sort of document, and I would have thought that the governance rules would be the best place for it, but I'm very happy if the council can consider that when drafting those governance rules.
Thank you. If it's okay, through you, Mr Mayor, I'd also acknowledge that the current resolution does call for a report, so that report will flesh out some of those particulars as it's brought back by officers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Any other questions? Moved by, question?
It's not a question,
Ah.
but I did want to propose a change to this
Right.
notice of motion.
Yep.
So when you're ready.
Yeah, you go for it, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to propose a change, and it looks like the change has already been made. So somebody's a mind reader here.
You happy to move that one?
Yeah, happy to
Second.
move that one. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair enough. Yep. Just your microphone.
The heading of the notice of motion talks about proposal to keep additional records of council meetings and committees, but the item that's been removed says that this does not include a meeting of the council. So it just, maybe by removing that, that makes the heading make more sense. But I believe, and I just ask the question, is the intention of this motion to keep records of councillor briefings as opposed to councillor meetings, which are these meetings here, or is it different types of meetings? Perhaps just a clarity on that.
And it's, at the risk of stating the obvious, it's a question for Councillor Calendar.
Yeah, well, if that's appropriate,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm happy to answer that question. When you read the resolution, it says that Council resolves to prepare a record of all meetings of an advisory committee of the Council, if at least one councillor is present, or a planned or unscheduled meeting of at least half of the councillors and one member of council staff, which considers matters that are intended or likely to be the subject of a decision of the council or subject to the exercise of a function, duty or power of the council that has been delegated to a person or committee. So I would think that it would capture all of those items. A number of clauses have been removed, obviously through my amendment, and I believe that in the report that the executive will be bringing back, if they believe that there's a need to have some further clauses, that they're obviously welcome to, at that point in time, include them and provide some sort of justification or explanation as to why they believe there needs to be that further clause included to remove something from the resolution.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, and it's prompted Councillor Callender by what you've said, because I appreciate the intent of this motion is to get a report back as to how it would be implemented, just to check that this is the intent, what you've just shared, is actually possible. And I think my questions to you, Mr. CEO, the way the motion, the motion on screen reads, will it be within the purview as council officers enact this motion if it was supported to bring back suggestions noting that the motion is all meetings? Are you, as you enact the motion, able to bring back, as Councillor Callender suggested, exceptions?
If I understand the question correctly, Mr. Mayor, I believe yes. This is largely, other than the change that's been made, largely wording from the previous act that related to a practice of recording assemblies of councillors, and that's something that officers understand what the process needs to be, and we'll be able to articulate what the resource implications of that are. So that report will be able to be pulled together to address those questions.
Thank you. Moving this motion, yeah, and I'm seeking a seconder.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Marston. Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a report, as has been disclosed already, that was previously required under the Act as a disclosure item and was subsequently discontinued as the new Act no longer mandated it. And I personally feel that having visibility and transparency is important. What residents will see from this in future is an agenda of meetings held, a list of who attended with topics that have been discussed. It's all part of achieving transparency and will help address some of the questions and comments that are made within our community. As an example, there's been debate about how many meetings council and councillors have had with the LXRP, or if and when councillors were briefed on topics such as Technopark in the past. Having these meetings documented would clear the air about when council is having meetings, who attended and what was discussed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. Councillor Marston, before I go to you as seconder, I note that we're at 9:57, and so I'll just request a extension. Moved by Councillor.
Second.
Second. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Councillor Marston as the seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Callender for bringing in this notice of motion, which puts back that transparency that existed in the previous Act. I agree with you through you, Mayor, that because a report is forthcoming, then there's no need to wordsmith every possible conceivable body in which this may not apply. And in any case, that's probably changed since the Act was no longer required certain meetings to be documented. I think it's just a basic principle of accountability, transparency, that we ought to record who was there and what was discussed when one councillor is present at an advisory committee, or at least half of council is at a planned or unscheduled meeting, with the obvious exception of, social gatherings or other niche edge cases which may not be feasible to document. So I'm glad this is before us, and I heartily support the sentiment, the aim, and relish the opportunity to read the report when it comes back. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Marston, are there any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Grimmer.
I'm happy to support it. I think it's great that we do have transparency, and also this is what we're fighting for. When we go to, we don't just come to the chambers and just make up stuff. As a councillor who's attended, I think, most meetings or all meetings, I've really do champion, with, anything from high school zonings to Queen Street Bridge to aquatic wetlands. This is where we really work really hard to get the results. We've got officers who are present. We give feedback from residents who contact us, and we've got the right resources in a council briefing. So I welcome this and I champion this, and it's such a great important thing for the community to know, and if they see something that they don't think that we've missed, it gives them more of an opportunity to come to us and say we've missed this, and have a discussion about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Any other speakers to the motion? I'll go back to you, Councillor Canada.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just reiterate what I've heard tonight and what I've said also. This is about transparency and accountability. It's about providing our community with as much information as possible. Happy to put that up to the vote, Mr Mayor.
I'll do that. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Councillors, noting that one item has been foreshadowed, and I'll get to that. Are there any other items of urgent business to be raised? So to consider the item, Councillor Sutton-Legault, we first need a motion to establish that it's...
Move to consider the item that Councillor Sutton-Legault is to put forward on the absence of a councillor.
Yeah, and so that's related to Councillor Hempel's leave of absence, and so we'll just get that.
So we have that council acknowledges and supports.
Just one, sorry. Councillor Sutton-Legault, we'll just get this one sorted. And then we'll vote on that it's urgent, and then we'll move to...
Oh, I see. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, I've got a few questions about this. About
motion.
seeking the extension, seeking the urgent motion.
Just get the motion to establish the urgent business on screen.
Yep.
Could you... So the initial motion, just so we're clear, should read that the council consider items of urgent business relating to Councillor Hempel's leave of absence. That's the first motion. So if we can get that on the screen. And I'll say it again, that the council consider items of urgent business relating to Councillor Hempel's leave of absence.
Yes, please. Thanks. That's fine.
And then for the time being, the remainder of that can be removed, and then we'll come back to the substance of the motion.
Could it be an item?
An item. An item. Yep. And so we've got a mover in. Just sorry, one moment. Yep. So we'll come to that next. Yep. So moved by Councillor Marston and seconded by Councillor Sutton Go. Are your questions relating
Yes.
to this?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And I'm not sure if they should go to perhaps through you to the CEO, but or someone else. But it's important that we follow the governance rules, and as required by Hobsons Bay Governance Rule 11.4.2, was this request for an urgent item of business lodged in writing to the CEO no later than 12 p.m. yesterday?
Just give us one moment.
Sure. So that's Governance Rule 11.4.2.
And so this is relating to considering an item of urgent business.
That's right. So with an urgent business for inclusion on the agenda.
Just give us one moment.
Sure.
Give it a go. So in answer to your question, the item that would be called upon is item 11.4.1. If the agenda for the meeting makes provision for urgent business, business cannot be admitted as urgent business other than by resolution of council.
Yep. And the next provision explicitly states a councillor proposing a matter to be admitted as urgent business must lodge it in writing to the Chief Executive Officer no later than 12 p.m. the day prior to the scheduled meeting.
A man is unwell for crying out loud.
Sorry, point.
Let me put my speaker on so that I can say that into the microphone.
Just work it through.
Because in addition to that, I'll speak to the urgency.
Yeah, so it indicates that it wasn't received prior to then. It was flagged prior to then, but it wasn't received prior to.
So, left.
Urgent business? How is it urgent if he has an apology today? And has a leave of absence for the next meeting? Okay, that's fine.
Won't need a councillor to see can nominate it.
And Mr.
I'm not sure I'd have to seek advice, but as to the consequence of it.
And Mr. Mayor and CEO, What I'm proposing is that, as per the beginning of the meeting, there was an apology offered for Councillor Heppel. I think an apology is appropriate and we should accept an apology. This isn't urgent. He can have an apology for today, and if he needs a leave of absence, well, one can be submitted for his leave of absence for the September meeting between now and the September meeting. So it's not, in that respect, it's not even an urgent item of business.
This one.
Sure.
I mean, I think the other thing is that I've advised councillors that's the appropriate course of action based on items we read earlier relating to the leave of absence and not that I'm aware of. There might be a provision for it, but I've not across it.
And could we?
Yeah, I think we just basically, like you did with the minutes, go back to the apologies to vary the order of business, but it's already been dealt with. I'm not really sure how to deal with this business.
Oh, someone's looking quite smug right there, Councillor Brickler. A person is ill, a person is unwell. A person is unwell.
It's funny how some councillors think that governance rules should be obeyed for some things, but not others.
Just bear with us. Yeah.
It's not like it was a surprise.
Foreshadow doesn't give it any standing.
Foreshadowed. We've had
Doesn't give
conversation
it
about
any
this.
standing.
Councillor Calendar and Councillor
Unbelievable.
Briffa.
Unbelievable.
Just, okay, just hold for a second. I'm just going to collect my thoughts and just hold for one moment. So the governance rule that's been pointed to 11.4.2, based on advice from the CEO, in order for us to consider the urgent business, it would have to be received in writing. They're our governance rules. What I'm proposing is that we, noting that you did foreshadow this, Councillor Sutton-Legault, and you highlighted that the reason why an apology wasn't being moved was because we were considering this item of urgent business. I'm going to suggest if a councillor could move that we note the apology of Councillor Hempel, so that that's on the record, that he was an apology to this meeting, but in terms of the urgent business, in line with our governance rules, I'm not going to be able to accept it. And so, in councillors' hands, if you'd be open to moving that apology.
If that's the case, I'm sorry that that's the way it's been, how it's been brought to this point. So, because I did foreshadow it and also brought it to a briefing and the reasons why. Yes, I'm happy to, or willing to, present on Councillor Hempel's behalf as an apology for this meeting. And just, if I finish speaking first, then we can perhaps come back to how we resolve Councillor Hempel's leave of absence, because clearly I've not assisted with that.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Councillor Sutherland will seek advice as it relates to the next meeting of council. Thank you. So that's been moved. We've got a seconder. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Any supplementary public questions? No. With that, I'll bring the meeting to a close at 10:15 p.m. Thank you, councillors.